When you're a kid, it sometimes feels like you're the main character of a story or a video game, and that everyone around you is a non-player character, if you will. Especially adults outside of your family, like your teacher, for example. Then one day, you see your teacher at the grocery store, and it's like a bomb goes off in your head, and you realize that every person you meet is the main character of their own story. Somebody recently came up with a word for this realization, and I'll have to go back and find it and add it in during editing, but what there's not a word for yet is this new thing I've noticed where it feels like not only me, but everyone around me is turning back into NPCs, into non-player characters. Like we're all just kind of going through the motions every day. Like we're Sims being controlled by somebody else or something. And I know I'm not the only one who feels this way, because there's some people now going around thinking we actually like live in a simulation, like we're in the Matrix or something, right? Usually because they're trying to sell you a way out, you know, is what I find. And while I'm not here today to like sell you the red pill or the blue pill or whichever pill it's supposed to be, I don't know if I can remember. I have been tackling this out of control feeling myself lately, and I'm hoping that if I share my experience with some of you who may be feeling the same way, just maybe you can pick the controller back up and become a player again. We're playing as Knuckles in Sonic 3 today, or Sonic 3 and Knuckles as it's called, because Knuckles started as an NPC and then got his own story, so it seemed like a decent fit. So what's causing this problem? Why are more and more people feeling stuck in life? Why are more and more people constantly dissociating? Why are more and more people feeling like they aren't holding the controller? Part of it is absolutely by design. We have to recognize that part first. There are absolutely people in this world who benefit from taking the controller away from you. Social media algorithms want you to stay doom scrolling 24/7 because then they make more money. The gooberment wants you to be exhausted and overwhelmed so you don't have the energy to stand up for what you think is right. And your corporate job probably wants to make you fit a mold rather than express your creativity, because many executives would rather drive the car off the proverbial cliff than let somebody that they view as beneath them steer. And like maybe you've already noticed this and maybe you've spoken out about it and the people around you were like, well, just vote and just unplug from social media and just quit your job. And a lot of that is, it's just not practical or really even actionable if it's even enough to actually solve the problem anyway. So how do you play to win? How do you play at all in a game where the only way to win is not to play? Well, I think you got to change the rules of the game, right? Change the parameters of the test. When Captain Kirk, all right, hold on. I'm gonna go full nerd here for a second, all right? When Captain Kirk takes the Kobayashi Maru, the impossible test, right? He doesn't just take the L and move on. He hacks the test. He changes the rules, right? When Knuckles can't go the way Sonic goes, when the game just says, no, you can't go that way, Knuckles doesn't just sit down and take it. No, he forges his own path, right? He just punches down the wall. Knuckles is, in fact, a great example for this, because Knuckles' campaign in this game is a lot harder than Sonic's. Even though this is Knuckles' home, he has to work harder just because the game is kind of set up against him. And that's all cool in the gang from like an abstract sense, right? But besides literally cheating like Captain Kirk, how do we actually go about breaking down these walls and making our own rules? I think it starts with deprogramming the lies we've been telling ourselves or have been told by other people that make up the rules we think we're expected to follow. Now, I used to be a big fan of Gary Vee, and to clarify, I'm not anymore, right? I think there's very little that Gary Vee and I would agree on these days. But there is one thing he said a long time ago that did actually kind of stick with me, and that's the idea that laziness doesn't exist. Now, I've got a video about a pretty controversial take of my own, the idea that talent doesn't exist, and I think the argument for both is actually pretty similar. What we call talent and what we call laziness, they're judgments that we pass onto ourselves or onto other people only when we don't have a complete picture. You can call someone talented or you can call someone lazy, but there's almost always some better way to describe what you're observing, I guess. We call someone talented when we aren't considering the work and practice it took to get them where they are today. And we call someone lazy when we perceive them as unmotivated or unwilling to do whatever it is that we're judging them for not doing, right? But our brains are our brains, right? They're always going to look for the quickest and most efficient way to achieve our goals. If that's what makes people lazy, then everyone's lazy. And if everyone is lazy, then no one is. Take zombies, for example. You really can't say many good things about zombies, right? But I'll be damned if they're not what you would call highly motivated individuals. Oh, fuck. If you're like, damn, I have all these brains and no one to eat them, well, who's gonna eat all these brains? And then you hire a zombie, he's gonna be the best employee you ever hire. But if I try to hire a zombie to edit my videos for me, I'm gonna be like, zombie, I told you I needed this video done by Monday. I saw you post your story that you were out all weekend eating brains. Why are you so lazy, right? So our problem isn't that we're, trying to be too efficient, and the problem really isn't that we're unmotivated. It's that our motivation and the things we actually want to do, our motivation and our values aren't in alignment. Son of a bitch. I just get this right. Okay, hold on. Let me concentrate. Fuck! Bro, Carnival Night Zone is probably my least favorite level in this game. I'll be real with you. All right, I got it this time. Hey, we got it. So you may feel like you aren't driven enough to achieve what you want to achieve in life, when in reality, it may just be that your brain is prioritizing what it's convinced that it needs. A lot of people in their monkey brain are like, yeah, I'm gonna work my ass off for 20 years and then retire early. So when I'm 40, I can just sit back and enjoy the rest of my life. And then your reptile brain is like, working my ass off? I like my ass. Bro, I'll do you one better. We can enjoy today. We got TikTok, we got video games. And if you're lucky, your monkey brain is like, whoa, that's not sustainable. The whole point of the retirement plan is so that we can sustain it, which, speaking of unsustainable, I cannot fucking talk and do the special stage at the same time. And all your reptile brain has to do to win the argument is say, bro, why are you stressing? We got 20 years. We can start tomorrow. What difference does it make? And then you waste the day, you play the video games, you watch the TikTok, and then you go to bed and you wake up and then it's tomorrow, and then the brains have the conversation again, and it all starts over again, and it next thing you know, 10 years have gone by. Pink Floyd has been singing about this for like 50 years. So we have to forgive our little brains for being bad at prioritizing our long-term success, right? They evolved to learn how to survive, not how to thrive. And one of the clearest examples of that is how much our brains love comfort. Our brains say comfort equals security, and security equals survival. Whether that comfort comes in the form of comfort food, or emotional comfort, or even a weighted blanket, reptile brain don't care. Reptile brain don't give a shit. Now put reptile brain in a world where they've got a device in their pocket that is simultaneously their most accessible form of comfort and emotional regulation, and also where they're constantly being bombarded by everything from war crimes to pictures of people that look marginally happier than them. And suddenly, reptile brain is absolutely fucked. And who could blame reptile brain? Reptile brain is equipped to handle life or death scenarios, not makeup tutorials callously narrating life or death scenarios. So what is monkey brain to do? What can monkey brain do to help our little reptile brains out?
To answer that, we need to talk about
The Legend of Zelda. While I am playing Ann Knuckles for this video, when I was outlining my notes for this topic, I realized that the solution could be boiled down to 3 ideas that we can pull from Zelda's Triforce: wisdom, power, and courage. Let's start with wisdom. Now, while wisdom and knowledge are sometimes hard to differentiate, I like to think of wisdom as your ability to be self-aware and to make observations and connections in the world around you. Plus, in D&D, you make wisdom save to avoid mind control effects, so it seems fitting for today's discussion. You'll sometimes hear doctors say good treatment is preceded by good diagnosis, right? We can't fix a problem if we aren't good at identifying what the problem is. So the first step then is to learn how to recognize when something is trying to hack your reptile brain in an attempt to take the controller away from you. You'll find it's not an all-day, everyday thing. In fact, it's often momentary, split-second decisions, and it's whether or not to give in to that temptation that's the decision. I'm not concerned with talking about whether or not free will exists in this video, though I do have something to say about that at the end, but I will say that if anything, the free will that we exert is maybe only a few seconds in total throughout a given day. By the time you're on your phone scrolling social media, you're probably not capable of exercising free will. You're already doom scrolling. You may not even be able to exercise free will when you have the phone in your hand. It may be before that. I noticed when I would answer text messages, I would hit my home button and automatically hit the Twitter icon. And I was sitting on my bed one day and I was just doom scrolling Twitter, and I was like, man, I really would rather be doing anything else right now. And I kept scrolling. And even in my conscious brain, I was like, man, I'm sitting here and I'm just observing myself scroll, and yet I can't stop. And in that like moment of prescience, I like fucking just went to my home screen and uninstalled the Twitter app like as soon as possible. Like as soon as I just yanked the controller back and said, no, I'm done doing this. I can't do this anymore. Wisdom comes with learning how to recognize exactly when you're at the crossroads and decide I can either let myself get swept away and be an NPC for a little while, or I can decide that there's something more important to me that I'd rather be doing right now. This is actually why meditation is so busted when it comes to self-improvement. Yes, meditation can help with anxiety. Meditation is just all around good for your mental health generally, but sitting down in a quiet room, not with nothing to do, but with the intention of doing nothing and observing how your mind deals with that can be the first step in recognizing these moments, these crossroads. Wisdom is also about choosing the correct I'd rather do's, right? It's about the prioritization. If all your monkey brain has to negotiate is, hey man, if we exercise, something good might happen in the future, it's gonna lose the argument every single time. Because reptile brain's gonna say, yes, but if I unwrap this Twinkie, something good's gonna happen right now. And by the time the monkey brain can say, well, that means something bad's gonna happen in the future, you've already eaten the Twinkie. The problem is not that exercising is a bad priority to have over eating a Twinkie. It's just that monkey brain was not prioritizing exercising. Monkey brain was trying to prioritize feeling fit in the future, right? After exercising. And reptile brain is like, well, a Twinkie in the hand is worth running around a bush. And monkey brain's like, can't argue with that. Man, Dr. K uses the Twinkie metaphor too, doesn't he? I'm not beating the Dr. K light allegations, I don't think. The perspective that monkey brain needs to have is not only is exercise good in the future, exercise is good now. If reptile brain says, I really want this Twinkie, monkey brain has to say, you know, it would be even better than a Twinkie, going for a run. And monkey brain better fucking mean it. That is the only situation in which monkey brain wins that argument. That takes us to the second piece of our proverbial Triforce, and that's power. In this case, willpower to be precise. Willpower is a tricky thing to get right because in reality, we really don't have much. Where willpower comes in is when you have to convince monkey brain that a run truly feels better than how a Twinkie tastes. And you can only pull one on a monkey brain like that so often before monkey brain gets tired of your shit. You know, the self-help industry is kind of a meme at this point, and rightfully so, I should point out. But there is a very short list of quote-unquote self-help books that I would actually recommend, and near the top is one called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. The title of the book is a little misleading because what it's really about is recognizing that you only have so many fucks to give over the given day or over the course of your life, and learning to give an appropriate level of fuck about the stuff that actually matters requires you to learn how to stop giving a fuck about the stuff that doesn't, and vice versa. That's why building habits is part of taking your control back. You think, oh, that habits are stuff you do without thinking, right? Doesn't that make you more of an NPC? And it's like, no, because once you make like exercise habitual, you no longer have to use willpower to get yourself to exercise, and that frees up fucks you can now give to other parts of your life that need attention. But something to keep in mind, and this kind of goes with the uninstalling Twitter thing that I was talking about earlier, is balancing when you avoid obstacles in your path versus when you overcome them. Your mind and body are highly motivated to do everything in their power to avoid obstacles, right? And that can be advantageous. It's good to find better ways to solve problems. It's good to conserve resources. But what I found is, and it seems obvious, but like the better I get at avoiding my problems, the worse I get at facing them. Sometimes in RPGs, we will avoid random encounters as much as possible, right? Because we don't want to bother. We want to save our resources. We want to they drain our magic or our spell slots and our healing items. We're trying to save for the boss. But then we'll get to the boss and we'll get party wiped because we were supposed to get XP by grinding the random encounters, and now we aren't strong enough to fight the boss, right? And so it's good to eliminate tasks and things that are getting in the way that are wasting your time and resources. But you also have to be a good judge of when building your experience isn't a waste of time. You got to be careful too, because avoidance, it has its own skill tree, right? You level up in avoidance the more you do it. It's even a meme at this point, right? Men will literally save Angel Island from a robot invasion before going to therapy. One of the sections of subtle art that jumped out at me, because it made me go, damn it, Mark Manson, you stole that from me. I came up with that first, is this part where he talks about, the old Spider-Man quote, right? Great power comes great responsibility and all that. And what we both independently concluded, I must admit, if I don't want to get my lawyers involved, is that the inverse must also be true. When you take on great responsibility, it bestows you with great power. Neat makes a video without mentioning Spider-Man challenge, level impossible. Mark expands on this by giving kind of this hypothetical. Imagine you hear the doorbell ring and you answer it and somebody's left a baby at your door. Suddenly you're responsible for this baby. Now, a lot of times we get, fault and responsibility, confused. You would say something is your fault because it was your responsibility, but the baby is not your fault, right? It's not your fault the baby was left in your care, however inappropriate your care might be for the baby. But now, whatever happens to the baby is in your power and yours alone, and it's therefore your responsibility. So what I would say is that we have to treat our monkey brain and our reptile brain with the same responsibility that we would a baby left on our doorstep. It's not your fault that you had a rough childhood. It's not your fault that you have ADHD or OCD or BPD or any of the Ds. It is my fault that I got crushed there. It's not your fault that you don't fit into what society expects you to be. But now your cards have been dealt to you, so what are you going to do with them? How are you going to play them? The way I see it, you've got two choices. You can flip the table and say the game is rigged, I don't have any control of my life, and it's the world's fault, or God's fault, or society's fault for making it so. Or you can say, despite how stacked the deck seems, I'm not going to take this sitting down. I'm the only one who has the power to change my life for the better. And what's interesting to me about that choice is the you who says I can't and the you who says I can, they are both correct. It's by choosing which statement applies to you that the statement becomes true. It's in the choice. And so that brings us to courage. It's pretty fucking scary to have the weight of that decision on your shoulders. It takes bravery to face the emotions and struggles that we're avoiding by escaping into our phones and video games. It takes incredible conviction to say, it's my responsibility if I win or lose, even though the game is rigged, but I'm going to play anyway. It's even scarier when you realize you have to make the choice not once, but every day. The good thing is that the stories in our games and our movies are there to remind us that great things come from being courageous. And if we fail sometimes, tomorrow is there for us to start again. And then after a while, it doesn't seem so scary anymore. So the funny part about this video is that it exists in the sort of self-fulfilling prophecy I was talking about earlier. If you've been following the channel, you'll notice it's been almost 6 months since a major upload. And I could go down the list of what's been stopping me, not to mention my imposter syndrome was at an all-time high, especially when this was the topic, right? But in reality, the only objective reason I haven't put out a video in all this time is because I haven't uploaded one. Right? I realized that being an NPC myself wasn't stopping me from making this video. The avoidance and imposter syndrome and the fear of putting myself out there again is what made me an NPC, and the only way to break out of that was to make this video. It's in this part of the journey that I realized that I wasn't happy doing client work, and so I decided that for the first time in my creative career, I'm going to focus solely on speaking my truth and delivering the value I have to give. And the best way I know how to do that is through this channel. So not only am I leaving client work completely and committing to weekly uploads on this channel, but I'm also committing to weekly bonus uploads for members of the Neat Club that just relaunched over at neatontheRocks.com. If you'd like to contribute to help make my creative dreams possible, $5 a month gets your name in these credits, and $10 a month gets you access to this video's companion piece, as well as a bonus video next week and the week after that, and forever, I guess. I don't know how long, but we'll see. In the meantime, you can also support the channel by checking out the other videos in this series, including the one about focus, which is the Sonic part of Sonic 3 Knuckles and really ties into this one. Also, free Gauze already, geez.